I think Chapter 10, Houston, We Have a Problem, might just be my favorite chapter in the whole entire book, Fly Car. I'm going to start off by playing a song by Panic! By the Disco called High, High Hopes, and I'll put the lyrics up so you can take a look. Well, first of all, in my opinion, Panic at the Disco has to be the greatest band name ever. But in addition to that, sometimes we have really high hopes and dreams for our lives. And Eli and Grady have high hopes. They have high hopes that Flycar, the sketches that Eli has created, can, if they work hard enough at it, become an actual flying car. Well, don't worry about mistakes because you know what? Sometimes people's mistakes turn into amazing things. I'm going to give you 3 examples of those. Well, the first, the chocolate chip cookie. Chocolate chip cookies, a person was baking and they had run out of baker's chocolate as they were making cookies. So the baker went ahead and just broke off little small chunks, and chocolate chip cookies were created. The next, potato chips. Well, potato chips at a restaurant, the customer was not happy with their potatoes. Said, "Look, I want it fried more. I want it thinner and fried." And the cook was getting so frustrated, he just sliced the potato into very thin slices and then deep fried them until it got really, really hard. And thus, the potato chip. Finally, remember earlier I talked about the microwave? Well, an engineer was working on a project, and all of a sudden he noticed that when his candy bar was melting, and he threw some popcorn into this device, and it started popping quite quickly. And voila, the microwave. So, I just need to go backwards a little bit. So yesterday, remember I talked about palindromes? And palindromes in the case with Eli and Grady was the temperature 1221. It doesn't matter if it's backwards or forwards, it's the same. And so here's an example of a palindrome. Race car. Doesn't matter whether you have the letters backwards or forwards or reversed, you can see it still spells the word race car. Well, if you like this idea, I have some other ones here. So it looks like kayak and taco cat, race car that we mentioned before, and UFO tofu are some other ones. So you can go ahead and take a look at those palindromes. But getting back to mistakes, we've all made them. You probably heard me make a lot of mistakes when I'm reading Fly Car out loud, and that's totally fine. Think back when you were a kid. Probably the earliest mistake that I remember as a kid is my mom saying, "Okay, Johnny, don't put your fingers on the stove." And of course, what do? You put your fingers on the stove. Ooh, hot! Well, you learn really quickly that you better not put your fingers on a hot stove because you're going to burn them. And then it's in your mind as wisdom. So when I was a little bit older than that, my older brother and I used to love to use what we call trial and error with our Hot Wheels. I don't know if any of you like to play Hot Wheels. But what we would do is we'd take our Hot Wheels with our Hot Wheel track, and there's a little clamp, and we would put it up against the side of our bed. And we wanted it to go through the loop-de-loop. How many have ever done that before? Well, the thing is that at first what we would have to do is we would put it too low, and then the car would go through, and it'd go about a quarter of the way through the loop, and it'd go back. So then we would lift it up way up high, like this clamp is at the top of our bed. And then, well, what would happen using trial and error? Well, the car would go too fast, it'd go, and then bang, and it would just drop off. And it would flip off the loop-to-loop. Then we would move it to the, just right level, and the Hot Wheel would go down the track, whoosh, down the hill, whoosh, through, whoosh, and whoosh, all the way through the loop-de-loop. And so I tell you that story because, once again, it's an example of trial and error. That's kind of the science version of saying, if at first you don't succeed, well, you know the saying, try again. Well, it's the same thing for Eli and Grady today in chapter 10. Houston, we have a problem. And here we go. Grady continued to work on the wings for Flycar in his spare time, melting the aluminum cans, placing the cooling liquids into molds, and stretching them out into sheets. Meanwhile, he was pondering how to get a pair of extensions to attach to the inverted door panels to actually create the wings, or attach the wings in this case. Eli and Grady had already figured out how the doors would need to maneuver forward over the front wheel by using a tracking sliding mechanism, much like the one used for the doors of minivans. So if you have a minivan, you open the door and it just kind of slides out. The doors would then shift back toward the main frame in a parallel motion to the chassis of the car and tightly lock into place. The door on either side would serve as the base of the two wings on the converted craft. So once again, halfway through the car, you're saying, okay, well, what does that look like? Well, it looks like this. Then the wings come out on the sides, like so. All right. And I'm having to do a lot of moving this morning. On the other side would serve as the base of the two wings on the converted craft. From there, a thin sheet of plexiglass would quickly descend downward from the top to make Flycar's interior a fully functioning airtight cockpit. So you've seen windows before. Windows would have to go into that whole space, not just the window, but also where the door is, so that it would be vacuum sealed. Getting the doors to shift and lock into place was relatively easy, but making the wings aerodynamic was a bigger challenge. Grady reasoned that there would be some room between the inside armrest of each door and the metal exterior. He knew he had to clear some of the space in the hidden compartment to create enough area for the wing extensions, but it could be done. Would the wing extensions actually fit? Grady wondered. And could they be expanded through the tip of the converted doors that now served as wings? After completing a little design research, he knew the answer to those questions. A sliding device would need to be installed inside the car door that would allow the wing to expand and retract. Grady thought of a drawbridge in the days of medieval castles and moats. It had to be functional and efficient at the same time. He began tinkering with the concepts of levers and pulleys that could be connected to the window opening mechanism, and that would allow the wing extension to connect to the end of the current car and the door base that was now serving as a wing. So if you think of a drawbridge, well, what does a drawbridge do? It goes like this. It goes ching, 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 out, 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 right? So he's going to have that go like that for the wings of the car. After a while, though, Grady got tired of thinking so intensely. He decided to take a siesta during his lunch break to clear his mind. While napping, he dreamed of a solution: yo-yos. He had flashed back to a vivid moment from his childhood. He was 10 years old and mesmerized by the demonstration by that year's Duncan yo-yo champion, who was putting on a show at the downtown toy store a few days before Christmas. The show was aimed at boosting yo-yo sales for the holiday. Grady remembered watching as the yo-yo master shot the string out of his wrist like Spider-Man releasing a web to capture a criminal. So yo-yos, you go woo, woo, like that, kind of like Spider-Man releases his web. The first trick he caught the audience was the sleeper, in which he sent the yo-yo whizzing down to barely an inch off the floor, and then spinning the hissing top right back up. At the last minute, he popped it back into his hand, much to the delight of the gathered shoppers. Grady woke up inspired by that dream. Could it solve his current design dilemma? Unlike the yo-yo, flight cars' wing extensions would have to move more like an elevator, with an up and down motion along a wire tether. He needed some sort of two-way pulley mechanism. Suddenly, the concept came to him: garage door. On the sides of a garage door are two pulleys with hooks, which allow the wheels to move along a track system, automatically lifting the weight of the door. If he could create the smaller scale pulley system, Grady reasoned, then the wings could extend at the end of the car doors on each side to create a relatively lightweight aerodynamic wing. It just might work, he thought. Curious to find out, Grady made his way down to the local hardware store. He purchased 4 pulleys, 2 for each side, and some 3/4 inch reinforced twisted cable wire. He tossed the bag into the back of his old truck and headed back to Martin Manor. After creating a 36-inch pulley system on each side of the door, it fit snugly inside the hollowed-out compartment. Grady sealed the mechanism inside the panel. Next, it was time to test the wing extensions. Grady made sure that the car doors were tightly shut, then pushed the cruise control button on the steering wheel, which he had converted to control the wings. The doors rocked along the tracks, first moving forward in the front of the wheel well, and then sliding back into place with a click. He tapped the button a second time and then watched with increased excitement as the wing extensions moved into place, creating a pair of 7-foot aerodynamic wings on either side of the craft. Perfect. Just right, Grady exclaimed and began doing a touchdown dance inside the otherwise still barn. Eli rushed home from school that day, excited to tell his mom about his first day back from spring break. He had also been wondering all day if Grady had made any progress on Flycar. Eli came bursting into the barn. "Hey, Grady, anything happened today?" "I solved the wing issue," Grady said proudly. "Really? Can you give me a demonstration?" "Get behind the wheel, kid." Eli rubbed his sweaty palms on his faded blue jeans and hopped into the driver's seat. He listened carefully to Grady's instructions and hit the wing control button a single time. Suddenly, the car doors transformed before his very eyes. They started shifting along the tracking mechanism, prepared to extend like wings. Eli's heart began to race. He continued to count to 10 slowly, then pressed the control button another time. Bink. A pair of flaps opened from within each door, and the pulleys began moving the wings into place, extending the doors into a pair of 7-foot wings. Finally, a clear, protective plastic plexiglass cover slid down, taking up the open space where the car doors had once been. Eli sat in awe. The car had made a complete metamorphosis into a plane in less than a minute. The Taylor Aero car had taken far longer, 5 minutes, to convert from car to plane. Eli began jumping up and down, then blurted out the first thought that came into his mind. We've got to test drive. Fly this thing. We don't even know if it can make it off the ground, son, Grady said. Well, we'll never know unless we try. What did Thomas Edison say? I've not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Yeah, but we only have one Martin Mercurio, and it's your dad's most prized possession. What if we total the vehicle? My great-grandfather rolled out the very first Martin motorized vehicle in this barn. He preserved the family business right here, Grady. We're talking at ground zero for Martin innovation. Where's your sense of adventure? Eli said. Adventure's for young people, son. Eli, if you haven't noticed, I've got a few more miles on the tires than you do. Listen, Grady, we could continue this legacy this very day, Eli said. You may never have become an astronaut, but that doesn't mean that you can't get a little closer to exploring the heavens. Okay, you got me on that, Junior. Let's do it, Grady said, smiling. Here's another Edison quote you'll like. Heck, there are no rules here. We're just trying to accomplish something. Now that's the spirit, Eli said.